The apothecary treats a young boy's scraped knee, reassuring him it's disinfected and fine. The kids thank him happily before running off to play again. As he resumes his day, checking his shopping list and wondering where to begin, a man from the pawn bazaar calls out to him. Initially thinking the man might be in pain again, the apothecary is told instead to follow him. Inside, the bazaar owner shows him something he believes the apothecary will find useful. The pawn bazaar owner leads the apothecary into a back storage room. Inside, the apothecary stops in surprise. A young girl is lying inside a large glass container, still and pale, but unmistakably alive. He kneels beside her and checks her condition, noticing that she's breathing faintly. The owner explains that she was brought in by someone who wanted to get rid of her, and now she's just a burden taking up space. As the apothecary observes her more closely, her eyes suddenly open. Their eyes meet, hers wide and filled with fear. In a trembling voice, she whispers that she wants to go home. The apothecary is silent for a moment, then stands up, clearly moved by her words. The owner, uncomfortable with the situation, says he doesn't want her in his shop anymore. Without hesitating, the apothecary answers firmly that he'll take her. The apothecary prepares to take the girl with him, asking the shop owner for a carrying backpack. The owner is shocked that he plans to carry her himself, especially since he came from across the mountains, but the apothecary insists. He's in a hurry. He gently approaches the girl, reassuring her that he won't hurt her and explaining that he'll need to hold her body to keep her secure. She doesn't resist, only quietly responding as he adjusts the straps around her. As he lifts her onto his back, he notices her blank expression and the absence of reaction, realizing she's unnervingly calm about being handled. It dawns on him that she's become far too used to being treated as an object rather than a person. The apothecary travels through the forest with the girl secured on his back. Moving steadily away from the city, he tells her to hold on a little longer as they head down a mountain trail, warning her it'll be a bit shaky. She stays quiet, weakly leaning against him as he walks. As dusk falls, he decides to stop for the night, saying they'll rest and continue in the morning to arrive before noon. Gently, he sets her down and removes the hood covering her face, telling her he'll prepare food. When she softly whispers home, he pauses before reassuring her again and moves to set up their camp. While she sits against a tree, catching her breath, he notices her expression has softened slightly. There's a faint trace of calm that wasn't there before. Watching her, he quietly reflects that perhaps being in nature suits her, as if she feels more at ease away from people and noise, like elves who are said to dwell peacefully in old forest depths. The apothecary cooks a simple meal over the campfire, testing it carefully before serving. He notes that if the food is soft enough, the girl should be able to eat it without trouble. As the aroma rises, she sniffs the air, showing her sense of smell is functioning normally. When he offers her a bowl, he gently tells her to take her time. She hesitates, then slowly accepts the spoon, tasting the food. It's her first real reaction, hesitant but engaged. He watches quietly, asking if it's too hot, but she silently continues eating. After a few more bites, he asks if it's good. She looks at him briefly and resumes eating, a faint trace of life returning to her expression. Relieved, the apothecary decides they should rest for the night. The campfire flickers softly beside them as she finishes her meal in calm silence. As night falls, the apothecary notices the girl's condition worsening. She's trembling and sweating, her breathing uneven. Checking her temperature, he finds she has a high fever. He thinks through the possibilities: infection from untreated wounds, inflammation, or perhaps exhaustion. But regardless of the cause, he needs to act quickly. He gathers herbs from his supplies and begins preparing medicine, crushing dried plants and mixing them into a bitter brew with fever-reducing and antibacterial properties. Once it's ready, he carefully lifts her head and apologizes, knowing it will taste terrible, then helps her drink it slowly. She struggles but manages to swallow, her body relaxing slightly afterward. He tells her it's okay, urging her to calm down and rest. Watching her breathing steady, he quietly assures her that she'll recover and, in time, be able to go back home. Gently laying a hand on her forehead, he tells her to rest for now. As she finally drifts into sleep, late at night, the apothecary sits by the campfire, keeping watch as the girl finally sleeps peacefully beside him. He repeats his quiet promise that she'll be able to go home. But when he looks at her, a thought tightens in his chest. He doesn't just want to send her back, he wants to help her recover and live freely. Memories of the pawn shop return to him, how the merchants and customers had treated her without a trace of pity, viewing her as an object to be bought and sold. He clenches his fists, realizing bitterly that they never even considered her human. That thought echoes in his mind. Do they even see her as a person? As frustration builds, his body begins to tremble. His hands shake before his eyes as old images flash through his mind. Blood, bones, distorted faces of those who once suffered or died before he could save them. The weight of failure, the guilt of helplessness, floods back violently. Breathing heavily, he brings his hands together, forcing himself to steady. The vision fades, leaving only the quiet crackle of the fire. Looking down at his hands, now still, he mutters to himself, barely audible, "I'll save her." At dawn, the girl stirs awake, her eyes slowly opening to the soft light. The apothecary immediately notices and greets her gently, relieved to see she's conscious again. Her fever hasn't fully subsided, but she looks more alert than the night before. He supports her carefully, saying he's going to lift her a little, mindful not to cause discomfort. As their eyes meet, he recalls her faint words from before, her wish to go home. That thought settles firmly in his mind. He reflects on it silently. To grant that wish, the only thing he can do is continue treating her, easing her pain and restoring her strength so she can live again, close to the way she once did. Watching her fragile yet steady gaze, he resolves that no matter how long it takes or how much effort it demands, he'll see it through. Even if the path ahead is difficult, he won't turn away. The apothecary looks at the girl, now awake and quietly sitting up, and tells her he wants to help, not just to heal her body, but her heart as well. He admits he doesn't fully understand what was done to her or what kind of suffering she's been through, but he still wants to do what he can for her. Then he says there's one thing he wants to give her, a name, something that carries a wish for her future. Holding out his hand, he softly names her Resur, explaining that it comes from the word for revival or rebirth, a symbol of the new life she can begin. She looks at him silently, touched but unsure how to respond. The apothecary reassures her with a gentle smile and promises to help her recover. As the morning light spreads across the mountains, he prepares breakfast, saying they'll eat and then head for his workshop to continue her treatment. When he calls her Resure-san, she finally meets his gaze. They share a small, quiet moment over their meal. Thus begins the journey of Resura's healing, her path to recovery under the care of the wandering apothecary. The apothecary and Resur finally reach a peaceful settlement nestled in the mountains. He stops in front of a modest house and tells her they've arrived. This will be her new home. It's quiet and warm, far from the city where she suffered. Inside, he gently settles her onto a couch. She looks around the simple room, repeating the word home softly, as if testing it, trying to process what it means after everything she's been through. He confirms it's hers now. Seeing her worn and bandaged state, he tells her the first thing they should do is take a bath to clean her wounds and help her relax. Flustered but composed, he adds that he'll step outside for a bit so she can have some privacy, asking her to wait there calmly while he prepares things. The apothecary visits a nearby house in the village, knocking on the door to make a request. A cheerful young girl answers, calling him apothecary uncle, and immediately asking if he brought her sweets. He apologizes, saying something urgent came up. The girl's older sister, Ane-san, appears and gently scolds her for being selfish, explaining that their teacher is working late. The apothecary reassures them that it's no problem, then admits he actually has a favor to ask. Surprised, An-san listens as he explains his situation, and without hesitation, she offers to help. She returns with a small bundle of neatly folded clothes, explaining they were her old ones but can easily be adjusted because of their drawstrings. Grateful, the apothecary accepts them, thanking her sincerely and saying how much it helps. An-san smiles warmly and tells him to reach out anytime he needs something else. Back at his home, the apothecary prepares a warm bath for Resur, filling it carefully as steam rises. He explains that he'll need to wash her clothes, so he'll help her undress first. She shows no resistance, no hint of awareness or embarrassment, which makes him pause in silent concern. When her bandages and tattered garments come off, the full extent of her suffering is revealed. Her body is covered in scars, burns, and deep bruises, evidence of long, deliberate torment. Some marks are shaped like hands, as though she'd been gripped and struck repeatedly. The sight makes his chest tighten with anger and sorrow. He takes a moment, fighting to steady his breath. The question burns in his mind, who could have done something like this? But he quickly forces himself to focus. Now isn't the time for rage. Regaining composure, he sets his resolve. Before anything else, he must treat her external wounds. Carefully, he begins cleaning and applying medicine to her scarred skin, his hands moving gently but with quiet determination. The apothecary carefully tends to Resura's wounds, wrapping them with clean bandages and noting that they'll need to be changed every few days. He works methodically, making sure each injury is treated properly. Once finished, he suggests putting some clothes on her, using the garments that Ane-san had kindly provided. As he searches through the bundle, he finds a comb tucked inside and realizes it must have been added as a considerate gesture. He uses it gently to smooth Resura's tangled hair before helping her into the new dress. Once dressed, she sits quietly on the chair, her posture straight and composed. The apothecary pauses, struck by the transformation. Her new clothes and brushed hair make her look almost like a different person. Part of him feels it's strange to think that way, but he can't help noticing the fragile grace she now shows. He apologizes for making her wait, saying he'll prepare a meal soon, but she fidgets suddenly, her hands clasped in front of her. Realizing something's wrong, he asks if she needs the toilet. She nods timidly, face red with embarrassment. Flustered by the misunderstanding, he reacts in surprise, quickly assuring her it's fine and apologizing himself for not realizing sooner. She looks up at him with wide, uncertain eyes, and for the first time, a faint spark of ordinary life breaks through the silence between them. The apothecary notices how Risur reacts timidly to basic needs, realizing her sensitivity to normal bodily sensations has returned, perhaps a small sign of recovery. After she finishes, he helps her back to her seat and gives her something warm to eat, carefully observing her responses. He reflects that, despite everything, her instincts and basic functions seem intact. This gives him hope, though he knows her deeper wounds, both physical and emotional, will take much longer to heal. As night starts to fall, she grows drowsy, her body finally relaxing under the comfort of safety. The apothecary lifts her gently and lays her down to rest. Watching her peaceful face, he thinks that, at last, she's found a moment of calm. Quietly, he considers her condition. Her body is frail, and her limbs still damaged. He recalls a rare alchemical recipe, Phi potion, a legendary elixir said to accelerate physical regeneration. Unlike the diluted ones sold in markets, the true version could fully restore even deep injuries, but creating it would be dangerous and time-consuming. Still, as he looks at the sleeping elf, he knows he can't bear to do nothing. Whispering to himself, he resolves to find a way, carefully, without unnecessary risk, to bring her strength back again. A few days later, the apothecary sends off a letter using a blackbird messenger, trusting it to deliver his report. Risur's condition has stabilized, and though she's still fragile, her eyes now follow his movements with quiet awareness. Before heading out to work, he tells her gently that he'll be nearby, tending the garden and gathering ingredients for medicine. She watches him through the open window as he digs under the morning sun. Risur closes her eyes, trembling slightly as tears begin to form. The smell of the forest triggers faint memories, the familiar air of where she once lived before everything was taken away. Clutching her chest, she whispers softly, almost to herself, "The smell of the forest, my house." Her expression mixes sorrow and longing, the ache of both loss and fragile hope stirring quietly within her. While the apothecary works steadily in the garden, wiping sweat from his brow, a cheerful voice calls from the house. Mon has arrived to help for the day. She greets him brightly before stepping inside, where she immediately notices Risur sitting quietly on the sofa, eyes wide with excitement. M1 exclaims that she's heard of the patient Wani-chan and can't believe she's finally meeting her. The apothecary introduces them properly, telling Mon her name is Risur. The girl's curiosity and warmth fill the room, her innocent energy contrasting with Risur's stillness. Observing from the doorway, the apothecary thinks that letting Risur interact with someone cheerful like M1 might help her recover emotionally. It could serve as gentle stimulation. When Mun asks if she can talk to Risur, he agrees, telling her she can sit and chat while he finishes some work. Leaving them together, he returns to his workspace, opening old medical and alchemical texts. He studies diagrams detailing dentures and prosthetics, deciding to craft a replacement using natural materials. With focus and patience, he begins carving boar tusks into the shape of teeth, the rhythmic scrape of tools marking the quiet progress of his careful craftsmanship. While M1 chats happily beside Risur, she eventually tilts her head and asks the apothecary why Risur never speaks. He pauses from his work and admits softly that it's not that she can't, it's that she probably hasn't found a reason to yet. His words make both girls fall silent for a moment. Mon glancing thoughtfully at Risur's quiet, faintly curious gaze. Wanting to lift the mood, Mon suddenly hurries out of the room and comes back with a handful of flowers she gathered. With a big grin, she weaves them into a little crown and carefully places it on Risur's head. "Ta-da! Look, Oji-san," she beams. "Isn't she pretty? Risur-chan will be your wife someday." The apothecary nearly drops what he's holding, flustered and insisting that Risur is his patient, not his wife. Fumbling to defend himself as Mon giggles, she teases him further, reminding him he said Risur was pretty. Clearly embarrassed, he tries to brush it off, admitting that M1 is very talented at making flower crowns. Satisfied with her work, M1 cheerfully waves goodbye, telling Risur she'll come play again. The apothecary watches her leave, the house falling quiet once more, the faint scent of flowers lingering in the air as he exhales with an awkward smile. After Mon leaves, the apothecary reflects quietly on Risur's progress. Healing her heart, he thinks, isn't something that can be done with medicine alone. It has to happen slowly, through small gentle moments that help her rediscover herself. Returning to his workbench, he finishes crafting the prosthetic denture he'd been shaping. Examining it closely, he decides it's ready and brings it to Risur. With calm reassurance, he tells her they'll give it a try for now, and carefully fits it in place. She sits patiently, trusting his hands even as she adjusts to the unfamiliar feeling. Once it's done, he prepares dinner, placing a small plate of food before her. "Let's eat, Risura-san," he says with a soft smile. She takes her first cautious bite, chewing slowly. The denture works. Watching her eat steadily, the apothecary relaxes a little. When she finishes, he gently asks how it was. She gives a faint nod, her face calm but her eyes glistening. As she lowers her gaze, he notices her sniff quietly, maybe from emotion rather than pain. Smiling warmly, he tells her not to worry. There's still plenty more, and she can eat as much as she likes. After their quiet meal, the apothecary tries to gently encourage conversation, telling Risur that being able to eat properly again is a wonderful step forward. He asks in an upbeat tone if she's happy about it, hoping for even a small reaction. She just lowers her eyes, seemingly lost in thought, but he can see that she's slowly beginning to process his words. Optimistic, he tells her they'll continue building up her strength little by little, but then suddenly, Risur begins to cough violently. Something's wrong. Her breathing turns ragged, and she clutches at her chest. In an instant, the apothecary rushes to her side, supporting her trembling body as panic flashes through his mind. She's burning with fever again. Her fragile body is convulsing as if rejecting the food she just ate. He calls out to her desperately, "Risure-san!" But her eyes are unfocused, her body going limp in his arms. Realizing the situation is critical, he moves fast, checking her pulse, her breathing, and the state of her skin. It's far worse than before, like her illness has flared up violently. He curses under his breath, grabbing his tools and medicine kit. "This reaction can't be ignored," he mutters. It's as if her body's rejecting itself. His thoughts race. No visible wound, no cut, but something is attacking her from within. The infection must have spread deeper than he'd expected. Grinding his teeth, he steadies his shaking hands. "Damn it, I won't let her die." He begins preparing an emergency remedy, pouring all his focus into saving her as darkness gathers outside the window. The apothecary works frantically to save Risur, kneeling by her side as her body convulses and her breathing weakens. Through experience and instinct, he quickly deduces the cause: poison. Acting immediately, he grinds charcoal to absorb the toxins, combines it with senna to clear her system, and forces her to take the bitter mixture, urging her to hold on as he strokes her back. Moments later, she vomits violently, expelling a dark tar-like substance that clatters onto the floor. He crouches down to inspect it and realizes it isn't a pill. It's a hardened shell that had dissolved slowly inside her, releasing poison into her body over time. As he looks closer, strange markings become visible on the surface, symbols etched in an old arcane language. His blood turns cold. These weren't random, they're curse runes, crafted intentionally. Someone did this to her, he murmurs in disbelief, fury burning behind his eyes. And they used a delayed activation, so it would take effect long after she was sold off. He clenches his fists, the image of cruel, smirking faces flashing in his mind. This wasn't just neglect or cruelty, it was deliberate malice. They wanted her to die quietly, far away, where no one would think to blame them. Jaw tight and voice trembling with anger, he growls, such twisted intent. His gaze hardens as he looks back at the weakened girl before him. Risura lies weak and feverish, her breathing shallow as Ana-san and Mon arrive. Mon looks on the verge of tears while Aina-san quietly examines her. The apothecary explains that it seems to be a monster's poison, and that he'll need to gather rare ingredients to make an antidote. Packing quickly, he tells them he'll be gone for about 3 days. Before leaving, he hands An-san a letter with written instructions, how to keep Risur stable, what medicines to give, and what to watch for. Then his expression hardens. He tells An-san that if Risuri's condition worsens and she passes away before he returns, to please take care of the funeral arrangements. He admits he doesn't want her body to be left alone. Ane-san meets his eyes steadily and replies, "I understand." Before the apothecary leaves, Ane-san firmly tells him not to worry, and that everything will be fine. She promises that she and Mon will take good care of Risur, urging him to focus on finding the antidote. Mon echoes her words with determination, adding that they'll make sure Risur holds on until he returns. Her confidence eases the tension in the room. The apothecary nods, gratitude showing in his tired eyes. He steps closer to Risur's bedside, seeing her weakly breathing but still fighting. Clenching his fist, he swears quietly, "Risur-san, I'll definitely save you, so please, wait for me." With that vow, he turns and heads out, leaving the two behind to watch over her. The apothecary sets off into the wilderness, moving quickly along rugged mountain paths. He searches tirelessly through forests and rocky terrain, gathering the materials he needs for the antidote: mandragora root, mana quartz, and other rare herbs found only in secluded places. After days of travel, he finally reaches his last destination, a dark, foreboding cave. Inside lives the source of the toxin that poisoned Risur, the obsidian spider. He recalls having located their habitat once before while researching other venoms. Now, that knowledge will be put to use. Standing before the entrance, he tightens his grip on his bow and takes a deep breath. Who'd have thought this information would end up saving someone, he murmurs. As he readies his weapon, an old, familiar steadiness settles over him. It's been years since he's hunted or fought, but the motion comes back like instinct. The leather creaks, the string draws taut, and for the first time in a long while, the apothecary feels a quiet sense of purpose. With determined eyes, he steps into the cave's darkness, ready to face what lies within. Inside the cave, the apothecary advances cautiously through the darkness, guided only by faint echoes and the gleam of moisture on the stone. The air grows thick and heavy, the scent of decay unmistakable. Before long, movement stirs in the shadows. From the far end of the cavern, an enormous spider emerges, its body glistening like polished obsidian, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. He raises his bow in reflex as the creature screeches, its legs hammering against the ground. Arrows fly. The monster lunges. He rolls aside, narrowly dodging the strike, using the brief gap to fire at its joints. Each shot hits true, but the beast keeps charging, venom dripping from its fangs. "I only need a sample of your insides," he shouts grimly, drawing another arrow. The spider swipes its legs, forcing him to dive behind a rock.